Hey guys, it's Joshua Klein here, your host of the Draft Beard podcast. Today we're going to be talking about our top 10 guards in this year's NFL draft. This class is absolutely loaded from top to the mid rounds. I have 19 total centers with grades all the way up to a late fourth, early fifth round. You're going to get a Pro Bowl potential people. You're going to get quite a few guys who can come in and be a fill-in or, backup or a starter, possible starter or potential. And so with that, I'm just going to give you a brief rundown about my 19 through 11, just really quick. I got Caden Wallace out of Penn State, Latham out of Arkansas. I've got Thomas out of Louisiana, Lamea out of Utah, Goncalves out of Pitt, Sundals, out of North Dakota State, Levinston, he's one of my sleepers, out of Kansas State. Really liked what I saw when I watched Cooper Bebee's film. And then Trente Jones and Isaiah Adams. Those were my 19 through 11. I think I messed up the order a little bit there. But I have them all as fourth round to fourth round, early fifth round grades. That is a lot of guards, or guys maybe you consider them as tackles who may end up moving to guard, that you're going to find right there early day early day three, maybe a little bit later in day three, just because of quantity. And so I'm going to get started here with my number 10 offensive guard, and that is going to be Trevor Keegan out of the University of Michigan. He's 6'5". He has good hands. I don't see him as a guy who's going to be a starter in the NFL, right? I think I look at my grades from the number 10 all the way down to 19. They're pretty close. But I just went with Trevor Keegan. I think his size and a little bit more athleticism than Isaiah Adams, where you're going to like him, where he wins. He does get quick off of his stance. He's very fundamental. He gets into position. He's very smart. He uses that upper half of his body, and he has pretty good footwork. He's very technically sound. He's going to need refinement, though. If you've got his lower body, he kind of loses himself a little bit. He's got some tight hips. Sometimes he does kind of lean forward, and he uses his arm strength instead of using his hands. So he kind of loves his upper body strength, and he likes to overpower people with his strength instead of using a little bit more agility, a little bit more fundamentals. I see him as a good backup guard. He might be able to play tackle in the pinch in the NFL. I'm looking more towards a backup to maybe the development of a starting guard. I liked him a little bit more than Isaiah Adams. Again, I think Isaiah Adams, he wants to try tackle. I think his hands and arms are going to be a little bit too small, very similar to Trevor Keegan. I think just going with Trevor, again, being that University of Michigan background and what they're just ready for the NFL. So Trevor Keegan, I had a fourth round grade on him. He was my highest graded player that I had a fourth round grade on him. So really 10 through 19, like I said, they're kind of all very similarly graded. So we'll go with my next offensive lineman. This is my first guy that had a third round grade, a late third, early fourth round grade on, and that is Delmar Glaze out of Maryland. Man, the more I watched that guy, the more I just absolutely fell in love with him. When I started the draft process, it was kind of a guy I just kind of watched just to get myself familiar with him. And the more I watched, the more I realized, man, I think this guy can play maybe all the way across the offensive line. He's 6'4". He's 315 pounds. And he's not tall really to play tackle, tall enough. He doesn't have the weight maybe to play tackle, but he definitely does to have play on the interior of the offensive line. I think he could play center. He's one of the first guys where I looked at and go, okay, you maybe develop, this is my first guard that I think could develop into a starter at the NFL level. He's got okay athleticism. He's really more technical. He's got excellent positioning. He out physicals people. He really is good in that, what we like to call in the offensive line terms, is he excels in the phone booth area, and he loves to pancake people. He is just vicious. He loves to just slam them to the ground. The things where it needs correction on, again, I think it's because of his over aggressiveness. He needs to be more controlled. He's not really an athlete. He's strong, right? He's going to overpower you, but he's not really that athletic, and he does get beat to the outside. Again, because he has that susceptibility of getting beat from the outside, really is one of the things that shows you that he needs to move inside. I also think he's very smart. He is going to be able to play center and understand those assignments. He really struggles with seeing in front of him on those stunts and twists. So that's something you got to watch out for. But I like him a lot. It's his super aggressive. He is just a football player. I think he is a guy, like I said, I think he can develop into a starter. You put him at center and you might get something there. I like him a lot. He moved up for me. I had him a 5th round, 6th round. Just thought, maybe he's a guy you can get later in the draft as a swing offensive lineman. But the more I watched him, he is just gonna maul people over, beat the crap up out of the opposing defensive lineman. And I see a possible starter there at the NFL level. He's one of my sleepers, so hopefully that can work out for him. I'm not sure if he'll go in day 2. Maybe he slips to day 3, but I would not be surprised if I saw a team who needs a possible interior offensive lineman with starting potential taking a shot on him in day 2. Now, my next guy is my number 9, and that is Zak Zinter out of Michigan. 6'6". He's tall, like short arms, short hands. Obviously, he didn't work out at the combine or really have much of an off season in terms of pre-draft preparation. If you saw Michigan in the Ohio State game, he had that injury, so he wasn't ready to be ready to go through the draft process like a lot of guys. He's going to have to, overcome that injury. But I think Zach can develop into a quality NFL starter where he wins. He's above average to good with his blocking. He's great pulse. He's a guy who can get to the second level. He's very intelligent, team captain, disciplined. He moves his feet well, so he shuffles around really well. Again, plays well in that phone booth. He's very physical. He has very good his stature. I see him as a starting NFL guard to developing, and I don't think he's a guy, obviously given the injury, he's going to be a guy that you're going to plug him in and play him year 1, even without the injury. I think he's a guy who can come in, be your backup guard, develop into a good starting NFL player. Where he's not going to win for you, right? He's not super, super athletic, right? He's above average to average in athletic. He's probably above average in his strength, right? But he's kind of stiff. He's tall, right? So he really could have the height to play tackle, but because he's so tall, he kind of leans over a little bit and he loses his leverage. He doesn't use his legs enough. Again, he uses too much of his upper body. You see that with his lateral movement, with his footwork. He's just a guy who's going to be stronger. He can move. Like if you want to move him in, do him with a push, pull, do screens. I think he'd do pretty well at that. I see him as a good starter in the NFL, a good developmental guy. He was my number 8 offensive guard guy, 3rd, 4th round. Again, this is another one of those guys you can get in the 3rd to 4th round. Saw him a little bit, him and Glaze, I saw him just a little bit better long-term with a higher ceiling, similar floors to my other guys. So really, you could see this go in any order, even from my number 8 guy all the way down into the 19. They really could go mix, mash them, move them around. You're going to see them go in maybe completely different order in the NFL draft. But those guys are all pretty similar. I just think that Zinter has a higher ceiling than Glaze, than Keegan, Adams. 7 on my list is Dominick Puni. He is the tackle from the University of Kansas. That's where he played in college. But he is a guy that's going to be a guard at the NFL level. And again, it's the short arms. He has 33 3/8 inch arms. He's 6'5". He is 313 pounds and has 10 1/8 inch hands. This guy ran a 4.40 short shuttle, 97th percentile. This is the first of the guards that I have in this draft who I think can be really good starters at the NFL level. Where he excels, he is a really good run blocker, but he's an excellent pass blocker. He is super athletic. He has great burst. He has quick and controlled footwork. And this is another one of these offensive linemen. I know this is going to be beating a dead horse. he is another one who is just going to play right to the whistle. He wants to just take control, beat you up, and maul you. This is another one of those guys that just has incredible work ethic and a football player. Super, super smart. A very high IQ. He handles his angles well. He's very smooth in space. Great lateral movements. Now, where he needs some help with, right, is a lot of these fundamentals, right? Hand placement. Tends to lose his block, right? Pad level. You can tell he played tackle, but he needs better pad level. He's too upright. He loses his balance. He occasionally bends at the waist. So he's a little bit of a waist runner, but I don't think that's like his primary problem. He just needs technical refinement at the guard level because he's played tackle. And I think you could get a guy who could be a very good NFL starter, and that's Dominick Puni out of Kansas. I really like him a lot. So you're going to hear me say this a lot about the remaining guard class. I don't know if there's a guard left that if my team didn't draft, I would be upset that they drafted a really like the guard class this year. Dominick Puni has a third round grade on him just because his floor is a little bit lower. I think he needs a little bit more refining, technicals, skill set, getting some more tools in the toolbox. Lower floor, higher ceiling though than the guy I'm going to talk about next. That's number 6 on my list, and that is Christian Mahogany out of Boston College. Another one of my favorites in this class. Little short, 6'3". He weighed 314 pounds, arm length 33.5, and 10.5 inch hands. He's a guard, right? He is a true guard. He's not one of these guys who either can play guard center or were tackles in college and move into guard, or maybe had swing capabilities playing on the outside as well. Christian is going to be a true guard. He is, he's a mauler. He wants to beat you up. He is physical. He is aggressive. He's not athletic, but he's not one of these super strong guys that's his game is his strength. He has a little bit of both. If you want to play him in the screen game, you can play him in the screen game, right? He has tremendous power. He is an excellent run defender. He's quicker than you think he is. And if you want to use him as a puller, like I said, he's going to be very good for you. So he's effective in pass protection. I don't think it's necessarily his strength is pass protection, but he's a better run blocker. If you're going to use him in the run game, he's going to be very adequate to start his NFL career in the run game. Going to develop a little bit more in the pass game. He needs to learn how to maintain his gaps. Now we're going to talk about some of the things that could concern you, right? His hand positioning. Again, it's technical stuff. His hand positioning, he tends to lunge. Thing that concerns me is his eye level, right? Is he looking up at the defender, or is he looking down into the ground too much? I do see too much of him looking down into the ground. Really what you're looking at is he plays over the top, right? He's losing his center of gravity. That's something that you see with Christian, but he is a football player. And I love him. He's one of my guys. He's a pound the table guy. I actually have quite a few of those in the interior offensive line. For Christian Mahogany, I think he's a guy who can come in. He's going to be a good starter to start up. I think he can come in. You won't really miss a beat. He's going to have some mistakes like every rookie, but I think he can be a really good player. Has a really good floor. I don't think his ceiling is as high as some of these other guys. I think he can develop into a quality NFL starter who will probably be there for 3 contracts. Get his first one, get another one. He's got an 8-10-year career in front of him. So if you take him in the 3rd round, I think you'd be very happy if your team took him in the 3rd round. Like Christian Mahogany, one of my favorites in this year's NFL draft. Now, next on my list is number 5, and that is Jordan Morgan out of Arizona. And for a second, you're going to be going, wait a minute. Jordan Morgan at guard? I see him on a lot of stuff with him as saying he's a tackle and a lot higher rated. Yes, I understand all of that. I think his best position in the NFL is going to be a move inside to guard. Love Jordan Morgan, but not as much as some of the guys in front of him. Like, I think he has some weaknesses to his game where his floor isn't as high as some others when he transitions to the NFL level, but his ceiling is better. He is one of those guys, I think you could try him at tackle. Give him a shot, but I think he's going to perform better at the guard position. Now, I have a second round grade on him. And you're like, oof, second round grade. Let me just tell you, I think it's four, my fifth, fourth, third, and second, all have second round grades. They're all second round grades. So I really, really do like this guard class. And I'm a lot higher on the guard class than maybe a lot of other guys after watching a lot of them. Jordan is very smooth. He has really good change of direction. You can see his athleticism. It plays. You see it very well in college. He has a very athletic lower body. One thing I noticed, I haven't seen this with a lot of guys, right? And you see this because he played tackle more than guard. He knows the depth of the pocket really well and likes to keep the defender outside of that. He's very quick at exploding out of his stance and stopping that defender. Those are some things I really like about him. Oh, also exceptional knee bend, and he is natural at getting that leverage, and he does a really good job. He has a really high ceiling. Where he struggles, right? It's the short arms. That again, why I think he's going to be better at guard. Where I don't like him is he loses his balance, right? He plays too upright. He needs to figure out where his base is in run blocking. He needs to start as a better pass blocker than a run blocker, which fits the NFL, right? Where it's a passing league now. He does get overwhelmed by the stronger and faster guys. Again, that's why it's another reason why moving him to the inside where he's not going to be as susceptible to the faster edge rushers and those defensive linemen who come around him at an angle, right? And he tends to stop moving his feet on contact. So like the other couple guys before him, where a lot of their stuff, they're athletic. I think they have a lot of technical stuff that I think coaching can kind of fix. R. Morgan's issues a little bit more of a habit. Is it correctable? His ceiling is higher. Yeah, as we get, I really like him and his ceiling. I'm just not sure that his floor is as high as I would like it to be. So that's why I have him a little bit lower on him than most, maybe by about 20, 15 spots on the big board. But I do like him. I think he can develop into a very good NFL starter. Does he have Pro Bowl potential? I don't see it as Pro Bowl potential, but he's a guy. Put him at guard, and I think you could have something there. Get him coached up. He's going to have to learn and break some of these habits that I've seen him demonstrate at the collegiate level at the University of Arizona. That takes me now to my number 4 guard, and that is Mason McCormik out of South Dakota State. Yes, we have an FCS player at number 4, and I do have him ahead of Jordan Morgan. This is, again, one of my favorites in this draft. He is super gritty. This is another one of those offensive linemen that you see. He is just a football player. And if you look at Mason, he is athletic. You think Puni was athletic or Morgan. He is extremely athletic. He is super smart. Now, he didn't play center at South Dakota State, but he's the guy who called the line assignments. It was Mason McCormik, not their center. He understands the position. He is super, super smart. And that athleticism, I think, is going to transition into the NFL. He is 6'4", so he's a little small to play on the outside. Small hands. He's got 10-inch hands. Arm length, 33 7/8, 43rd percentile. Weight, he's going to need to bulk up a little bit. Strength is not going to be his game. But what he makes up for in that strength is the aggressiveness. It is going to outwork you. And he is going to do whatever you want. Coach, what do you want? What do you want me to do? He's going to do it. He can recognize what is in front of him very well. He understands blitz packages, stunts, twists very well. He is going to be a very, very good run blocker. He's going to need some help in learning how to pass protect, right? But I think the ceiling is there. His leadership is really, really good. Now, his weaknesses, right? Reasons why you're like, he's got some stuff. I think his ceiling is super high. He is a little stiff, right? You would think that with his athleticism, He'd be a little bit more looser, have a little bit better lateral movement, right? He loses his leverage a little bit, right? He has issues with the faster guys, which is kind of weird. You'd think being super athletic that wouldn't be necessarily an issue. But it's his pass protection that initially is going to hold him back. You can put him in there right now. I think Mason could jump from FCS, jump to the NFL level, and be a functional run blocker. You get him to develop as a pass blocker and also improve some of the technical stuff and the things that need to be coached and learn as a run blocker. I think you got yourself a phenomenal NFL guard who could also play center. So I think he is a guy who has potential to be a very good starter in the NFL. I don't see him as a plug and play guy, right? He's going to need some time to develop. But I think that you get year 2, year 3, his ceiling is higher than some of the guys behind him. His floor is lower. But I really do like Mason McCormik. I think he is could turn into being a really, really good NFL guard. His aggressiveness, his football IQ, and his athleticism, I would bet on them. And that's why I have him pretty high at number 4 guard in this year's NFL draft. Next is number 3, and I really wanted this guy to come out last year, and that's Cooper Bebee from Kansas State. He is going to beat you up. He is gritty. He is not as athletic as you have seen in other guards tackles in this class, and that's kind of the theme this year is athleticism. Cooper is a little bit of the exact opposite. 6'3", 322 pounds. He's like a little bowling ball. Short arms, 9th percentile at 31.5, and small hands. Okay, understand that. But this guy is going to outwork you. Even though he is not as athletic as some of the other guys, that doesn't mean he's not an athlete. I think he's just athletic enough, right? He doesn't have a quality strength game, and he doesn't have, that's not his calling card. And athleticism isn't his calling card. But he's above average to good in both. He can do very well in man or zone blocking schemes in your run game. So he's going to be versatile. He has a wide frame. He is tenacious. He actually might even be the most tenacious of all these guards that I've talked about. He is really good hand placement. Yes, hands are small, but he's technical. He is very, very, very smart, right? He could play anywhere, I believe, along the offensive line. In a pinch, maybe you could get him to play right tackle, but he is going to be able to rotate between the 2 interior guard positions, and he has the smarts and fluidity to play center. I really think that Cooper is going to develop into a very good NFL starter. Now, where he has issues, right? He struggles with that lateral movement, right? Those short arms, the strength, he loses his body control. He kind of gets outside of himself a little bit. Balance, that's going to be a problem. Can he adjust to the bigger, faster, stronger players in front of him? That's also could be a problem. But I like that Cooper is going to overcome those, and he's going to work extremely hard. He's coachable, and I think he has a very good floor, like a pretty high floor and a low ceiling, right? I think he's a guy, he could come in, play this year, and you wouldn't necessarily miss a beat. He's going to have some rookie mistakes. He's going to develop a little bit. I don't see Pro Bowl potential with him, but I see very, very good NFL starter. That's what I see with Cooper Bebee. Love him. I liked him last year a lot. And I know that, sometimes you get prospect fatigue and whatnot, but I have him at my number 3. Is that right? Oh my gosh, I'm losing track of this. Yeah. My number 3 offensive guard. I could see him going in the second round. I would be very surprised if he was day 3, but definitely mid to late second round is where I see teams starting to kind of get on board and look at drafting Cooper Bebee. I could talk about him forever. So we're going to move on to my number 2, and that is Christian Hayes out of Connecticut. He is a guy that is 6'3", weighs 317 pounds, super small, tiny hands, 9-inch hands, 33.5-inch arms. If you saw him at those Senior Bowl highlights, man, he just took on the defender, and he gets on, he's going to win, right? He understands, he's a great feel for timing, right? He possesses an understanding and football IQ, knowing what's going to happen, almost kind of reading it before it's going to happen, right? He is a good run blocker and a good pass blocker. If you need him to pull, he's going to be a good puller, right? I think he can be a day one starter for you right now. You draft him, you plug him in, he's going to start. He finishes strong. He's not exceptional in pass blocking. He's not exceptional in run blocking. But over time, I think he's really, really going to develop. I know he played, I think, in a zone-based scheme at the University of Connecticut. I think he can handle both man or zone schemes. Here's where he got some issues that he needs to work on, right? If I look at him, his over-aggressiveness could lead to some holding penalties. But I mean a lot. Like, he sometimes is just over-aggressive, and his over-aggressiveness gets him in trouble, right? He's smart, but because he wants to come at you so fast, he kind of, the defensive linemen kind of get a little bit on him initially. So he does struggle with that. He struggles with those wide assignments. He needs to refine his control. I think he has a lot of the technical stuff there in his game. Where I struggle with him is that over-aggressiveness. You're going to have to learn to say, hey, let's not be so aggressive that we're taking penalties here, or that the other guy is getting a read on you. You're just coming in too hot, right? You need to be controlled in your game. If he can learn that control, then I think he is going to be a very good guard. He could develop into a Pro Bowl type starting guard in the NFL. I think he's one of the guy, a really good floor and a really high ceiling. Just you got to be careful. I could understand if some teams are turned off by Christian because of his ability to just be completely over aggressive, and penalties are a bad thing, right? Taking those holding penalties when you have a drive, and those are drive killers, and that could be a problem with Christian. Understand that completely, but I still have him as my number 2 guard in the NFL draft this year. Second round grade, I have Hayes, Bebee, McCormik, and Morgan, all with second round grades. I have Mahogany and Puni with second and third round grades. And then I moved in with Zinter with and Glaze with third and fourth round grades, and a true fourth round grade starting with my number guy and Trevor Keegan. And then all the way back to some of the guys I mentioned way back at the beginning of this podcast. Now, that takes us to our number 1 guard in the NFL draft this year, and that is Graham Barton. Graham Barton is a true all-pro potential player. And the great thing about Graham, or one of the great things about Graham, is he can play anywhere. Do you want him to play a center? I think he could develop into being a top-notch NFL center. Guard, I think he could develop there and be a Pro Bowler. Do you want to try him out at tackle? You could. I think his ability to get the most out of his game is going to be on the interior of the offensive line. Graham is 6'5". He weighs 313 pounds. And again, it's the small hands and the small arms that I think are, again, it's a repetitive thing, but that are issues. I know he can play out there on an island, but I really think being a guard, being a tackle is where he is best suited. He is very consistent in his game. He uses hips very well to get under the defender. He's very smart. He's very calculated, high IQ. He's not over aggressive, unlike my previous guy that we talked about. He has a lot of tools in the toolbox. I kind of equate him to kind of a Latu of the offensive line, right? He has a lot of different techniques that he uses very well to win. Where he's going to have issues is using his arms too much. Now, he's not going to be like Christian Hayes, and I'm really, really overly concerned with holding penalties because of his over aggressiveness. In this case, it is more because he is trying to use his arms too much, right? He relies on his strength a little bit too much, and he kind of mistimes his blocks. He he has a good frame, right? But he kind of leaves himself out there to be exposed, right? But I think his things that he has issues with, I don't think they're that great, right? I think you're starting off already with a very technically sound offensive guard / center, if you want to put him there, and he's going to perform at a very high level. He has all pro potential, right? He just is one of the guys. He has elite speed, elite agility. He doesn't have, I would say, elite strength, but he's pretty strong. He just has kind of the whole package. I don't see him being unsuccessful in the NFL. I like his floor. If you're talking about his floor, adequate NFL starter, right? But I think he's a guy that you're going to just almost forget he's there because he's going to be that good. So Graham Barton, I have a first round grade on Graham, like a no doubt first round grade, probably top 20. I think what he starts at, if you start looking in 14, 15, maybe Seattle at 16, somewhere in there is where I think people start to look at him and start considering him. Probably where most teams have him on their draft board. But if you want to go back and overview the guard class, like I said, it is a loaded class. I think you got one guy who has really high Pro Bowl potential. A couple guys maybe could develop into that. But I think most of the guys that you see ranked 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, those are guys who could develop into really good NFL starters, multiple year players. That's what you're looking for when you get into the draft. You're looking for guys who just plug them in, play them. You hope that they can develop into being a Pro Bowler. You never know. Maybe they will. But that's the ultimate hope. But really what you're looking for, get starters at the NFL level because you don't have to worry about. That is your ultimate goal. You do that, you're going to be successful. You don't, guess what? You're out of a job. So with that, those are my top 10 guards in this year's class. And it is one of the most loaded positions in the class. And no, that's not the most fashionable. There are not many highlight reels of offensive linemen out there, but they're super important. You build from the trenches out. That's what I believe. So if you're looking for some good offensive guards this year, this class has it. And with that, I hope you enjoyed your this top 10 guard podcast.
The Draft Man Podcast.